this is probably a game that needs very little introduction, considering we've been waiting to get our hands on this title since it was first announced back in 2022. But I finally got a chance to play the Plucky Squire cover to cover, and it's time to give you my full book report. Did Devolver Digital create another page-turner with this 2D meets 3D platforming adventure, or was this a title best left on the shelf? Before we turn the page, please consider liking the video and subscribing so you don't miss the review of your next favorite indie game. Also, check us out over at patreon.com/idreamofindiegames for awesome perks like early and ad-free content, an exclusive podcast, and Discord access. Your community is waiting for you. Without further ado, hot off the press, let's get into my hot take on the Plucky Squire. Here, we'll play as the titular Plucky Squire named Jot. He has some major main character energy in this world, mostly because he is in fact the main character. Jot lives within the confines of a book that tells the tale of his valiant adventures and triumphs over the evil wizard Humgrump. Time and time again, Humgrump is bested by the little lad, since that's how their stories are written. That is until Humgrump decides to go a bit off script, using his powerful magic to eject Jot into the real world, and hence the true adventure begins. Now it's up to the newly enlightened Jot, with a little help from his friends of course, to restore his story and take down the evil Humgrump once and for all. I don't usually like to show you all of my cards at the beginning of a review, build some anticipation, some intrigue if you will, but I'm literally bursting at the seams with excitement to tell you that this game is so much better than I could have ever dreamed it would be. There is so much to talk about here that the charming backstory is just scratching the surface of this self-aware, whimsical, and incredibly engaging adventure. Imaginative gameplay is the star of the show here, sorry Jot, as you begin within the very 2D confines of your storybook, simply walking about, exploring your environment for collectibles, and fighting some pretty generic enemies while the game gives you a rundown of the plot. You also get to experience some of the game's diverse minigames pretty early on, playing Punch-Out against a badger. The Plucky Squire loves to throw unexpected yet highly enjoyable curveballs at you in the form of these mini-games throughout your gameplay. So trust me when I say you'll never truly know what to expect next. When the game really begins to open up, however, is when Jot is hurtled into the three-dimensional world. Here you'll have to pull off some creative platforming moves, stealthily avoid enemies, and travel into some even less traditional mediums to gain new powers and manipulate your own story. How do you do that, you might ask? Well, by dimension hopping, of course, turning the pages on your book, tilting the book to roll things around, and so much more. There is a significant amount of puzzles present in both of the game's dimensions, though they're never particularly brain-bending. In the two-dimensional world, puzzles are set up in the traditional sense, with blocks that need to be moved onto switches and staircases that need to be accessed. But what is unique about these puzzles is how you come to these solutions. More often than not, you will need to quite literally change up the story by swapping out words on the page in the book. You'll usually need to combine your skills in both dimensions to achieve the desired results here, hopping in and out of magic portals. Once out of the book, you can flip back through the pages to search for answers you may have missed the first go-around. The game does a fantastic job of guiding the player through hints, which make this title a little more accessible for a larger pool of gamers. When you're turning pages in search of an answer, important pages will have a golden halo around them, indicating there is something useful within them. When you're actually in the act of active exploration, you can approach the various forms of Moonbeard the Wizard for helpful and often humorous hints. There are also some additional options that can be toggled in the options menu to make things easier for for a novice player, as well as a story mode for those that are just here for the fun and spectacle of it all and less about the actual heroing. As I briefly mentioned, the Plucky Squire has some combat, though it's rarely challenging. You'll collect little light bulbs by defeating enemies and exploring, which can then be used to purchase new abilities and upgrades for your existing ones. For the most part, I've found myself using my classic sword attack, with the occasional sword throw peppered in for the hard-to-reach enemies. But I rarely sensed any real danger, and health refills are plentiful regardless. If you do happen to die, you'll just begin again on the same page or checkpoint. While both dimensions offer a lot to delight the player both visually and gameplay-wise, I oddly preferred the 2D segments for their creative puzzle designs and the layouts over the more visually impressive 3D landscapes. Both are excellent, but I did run into a bit of trouble manipulating the storybook pages at times, where the book would simply freeze up as I was tilting the pages, and I could no longer exit that perspective or tilt them back into place. It's an issue I ran into only once or twice, and ultimately didn't end up causing me to lose any progress, only costing the time it takes to quit to the options menu and reload my save, but it was enough to make me a little more cautious of those segments. I am confident this is a bug that can easily be patched out of the game, so I can't be too hung up on it. I also ran into some hesitation while trying to portal jump. Sometimes it was my own fault for not holding down the button long enough or not being close enough to the portal to jump back in, but sometimes it felt like the inputs just weren't registering properly. Again, nothing game-breaking, just not as smooth as I would have preferred. The Plucky Squire book has a map which is divided into worlds, each with a theme based in the arts. From literature to music, it's all covered here and manifests in some really innovative ways. Every detail echoes the realm's themes, from the greenery to the enemies, and even the name of the NPCs. These developers literally thought of everything, and it's impossible not to notice. These themes also play into the puzzles and mini-games you'll be playing, which culminate in boss battles of sorts. Nothing about the Plucky Squire is particularly challenging, yet it always feels satisfying to succeed and progress. There are also collectible art scrolls for you to uncover on your travels and purchase at the shop, which can give you some further incentive to play again and collect them all. Obviously, the graphical design is stellar, and you can clearly see that from my footage. There were so many moments that I found myself pointing at the screen in awe, desperate to share the wonderment of what I just witnessed with everyone in the room. The storybook visuals reminded me of the newspaper comics I used to read on Sunday mornings as a kid. Think Calvin and Hobbes, Peanuts, Wizard of Id, maybe even a little bit of Pearls Before Swine. The stylish visuals have a childlike wonder that really brought me back to a happy and carefree time in my life, combined with the three-dimensional world, which gives me a Toy Story vibe, with the inanimate objects with a consciousness of their own and an understanding of their place in the world. There's also influences on display here from other video games like Punch-Out, Shmups, and so much more that I refuse to spoil for you. The mixed media elements on display are some of the best I've ever seen in a video game, seamlessly transitioning to a realistic 3D children's bedroom, to the inside of one of their doodles, and then back to the book from whence you came will never be anything short of amazing to witness. Also, this is a really specific reference, but there is something about this game that reminds me of the teeny little super guy from Sesame Street. I'll try to find some footage of this for reference, but when I was a child, I was absolutely in awe of the visual style and would leave out my Welch's grape jelly jar glasses waiting for the characters on them to come to life. This simple animation of a little cartoon character traversing the real world via his cup. Same vibe here, and it feels amazing to feel that awe as an adult. I guess we're all just little kids at heart, looking for the magic in this world. I appreciate the Plucky Squire for this beautiful reminder. There's nothing bad I can say about the sound design either. The only voice acting comes in the form of the stellar narrator and the little vocalizations from Jot as he travels in and out of magic portals. This, to me, is the perfect balance of allowing the reader/player to let their imagination fill in the blanks for the characters and keeping them engaged in the story. You can read along and feel like you're participating in the story without too many intrusions, while the important plot points are highlighted for you. It's a winning formula that is further solidified with a dynamic soundtrack that seamlessly changes from page to page. The different locations have different sonic formulas that suit their artistic theming, all the while ebbing and flowing with the action at hand. Nothing is perfect, and the Plucky Squire does have a few small flaws that break the immersion, like the hang-ups while turning or tilting pages, and some input hesitation when dimension hopping. These are things I do believe will be fixed without too much trouble via patch. Apart from these items, and me wishing the game could go on for literally ever, I'm absolutely enamored with everything else. The visuals are stellar, the creativity, the innovative puzzle design, the narration, the soundtrack, the anticipation of what's around the next corner on the next page. It's all here. The Plucky Squire is pure magic. Here at I Dream of Indie, we have a lamp tiering system with bronze, silver, and gold lamps representing good, great, and exceptional games, respectively. We also have a rusty lamp for games with a glimmer of promise, as well as the dreaded Indie Krampus for games that need more time in the indie oven. In the case of the Plucky Squire, it's a golden genie lamp winner if I've ever seen one. One of my favorite games I've played this year and on the channel in general.